Greetings. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll take a look at a recent film, The Aviator. Now, this particular film, we will probably have a 2 or 3 episode look. I found it a rather interesting film. It's I think worth taking an extended look at. Incidentally, in the future, I will also take a look at Sideways, Hide and Seek, I think, and a few others such as Alexander the Great, which that particular film, which deserves some comment, I think, and National Treasure. So these will be upcoming. Some were 2004 films, and some, as in this case, 2005. This particular film, The Aviator, was directed by Martin Scorsese from a John Logan script. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Howard Hughes. It also included John C. Reilly as Hughes's number man and representative at Toolco, Noah Dietrich. There also is Kate Blanchett as Katharine Hepburn, a kind of a romantic interest. And we have also featured from time to time, such as Jude Law and Alan Alda gave a very interesting performance as a Senator Owen Brewster. We also have Stanley DeSantis making a brief appearance as Louis B. Mayer. Ava Gardner, the beautiful Ava Gardner, was portrayed by a lass. I kind of got her name a little confused, but I think it's Kate Bellingsell. At any rate, there are a host of actors here. It's a commendable job in terms of support, with the focus, of course, being on DiCaprio's Howard Hughes. It's a film that looked good, and that's very promising. I think had good production across the board, because you can't have a film that looks good, I think, without a very skillful camera work and the whole 9 yards of it, photography and so forth, editing. This particular film is a film which might have a two-parter in the way. This particular film takes us to about the the 1950 period of Howard Hughes' life. There's plenty of room for additional film work. Whether that will come to be, I can't say. This particular film, looking as good as it did, and having the stars which it did, probably was fairly expensive. Certainly a consideration. Whether it's a big money maker or not, I can't say. But there is a good deal more Howard Hughes to look at, to exploit. I hate to use the word exploit, but it is something that one must consider here, because the director, Martin Scorsese, is a director who is known to be very skillful, but also seemingly dishonest. So one would have to approach this film with a certain caution. Whether John Logan's script is factual or not, can't really be said by me. I don't know, but I do think that if you treat this particular film life as an historical fiction rather than biography, you can watch it with a good deal of comfort and figure it's loosely based, at any rate, on the life of Howard Hughes. This is a very interesting life, as I mentioned, and I might say at this point that in watching this particular film as it progresses, and as one notes mental aberrations cropping up in the Howard Hughes character, I could not help but think of other films I've seen which touched on the same matters, or similar matters. One in particular that got my attention as I observed this film, came to my mind, was The Rain Man, starring Dustin Hoffman. In that particular film, Hoffman was autistic, and one of his characteristics as such was the use of repetition. I noted that as an outward sign of the problem within the DiCaprio character. That is, an uncontrollable repetition. There were other signs and so forth. Does this mean that whatever mental deterioration was occurring in the Howard Hughes character, that it was related in some way to autism? Well, I can't say. I'm not sure that autism necessarily includes this sort of repetitive speech that the Dustin Hoffman Rain Man character showed. But there is that similarity. There may be a link. I can't say, but I do share with you the observance. There are also other films which might be mentioned, such as A Beautiful Mind, and later on the bizarre behavior of Howard Hughes in fashioning what for him was a safe area of his, at that time, abode, somewhat called to mind the mad clipping of newspapers and stringing them across a room and on the walls and so forth, which was exhibited by the John Nash character in A Beautiful Mind. Also, there were similarities in regard to suspicions and delusions in regard to other people, which may be characteristic, or it may be that these directors have a way of, and actors of studying each other. At any rate, this particular film opens up with a shot in a kind of a dim room, dimly lit, of a lad who is naked. We see him from the rear, and he is standing in a tub, a kind of a wide tub at that. We become aware that there is a woman in the room also. The camera moves so that we get a close-up of the lad, his face, upper chest. Also we see his leg for period legs. It is clear that the woman is his mother. The lad appears to be about 10 years or so in age. She is bathing him with a sponge, and they are having a little conversation. She is making her son to spell out the word quarantine, which he does in a rather deliberate fashion, each letter taken in a kind of a pause on the next and then the next. And she sort of makes him understand that there is a reason she is making him learn this by an allusion to the homes of what she terms the colored people with that sign, quarantine, apparently on the homes. There was apparently some sort of disease problem at this particular time. What time was it? It's hard for me to say, but I would guess it would be in the teens, the say 15, 16, something like this. The lad pays heed to his mother. She is, when she looks at him, projecting love, kind of maternal love. There's also a strain of sensuality which she is exhibiting. And she is cautioning him that he is not safe. And in this little preamble to the Aviator, the director, Martin Scorsese, is pretty much summing up the major themes which he will develop in this particular film. At the end, or near the end of this little preamble, we have the boy blurting out to his mother that he is going to grow up to be to build the fastest planes in the world and to be the richest man in the world, and so forth. So again, this little preamble seems to sum up exactly where Martin Scorsese intends to take the viewer. We get a cut from this particular scene to the time period of 1927. We see a youthful-looking DiCaprio who is his hair dyed black and who is dressed in some sort of blend of aviator of that time, pilot, and also, I think, director. But at any rate, he is in an area which is jejune, amid a host of bi-winged airplanes which are partially marked as German planes. And he has a large group of pilots and mechanics as well as film production people there. He shows himself to be energetic and in command. He seems to be very positive, exuberant, and it seems to know exactly where he's going. It is about this particular time that the character played by John C. Reilly appears, Noah Dietrich. He appears in pinstripe suit, business suit. He is a conservative, sober-looking fellow. He is interviewing for a job, and he has a little discussion with DiCaprio. and it's DiCaprio's interest. He makes it clear that he is now in control of Toolco. His parents are now dead, and he wants someone in Houston to represent his interest. Toolco, by the way, is a company which his father, who apparently was a very inventive man, developed from his invention of a drill bit which became standard for drilling of oil in Texas and Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, and so forth, and I think eventually the world. Therefore, he had gotten a kind of monopoly type of patent with this particular drill bit. And this being an oil boom time, it was certainly something of a cash cow. It was incorporated in Texas, however, and had to meet the law parameters of Texas, and this was something of a problem. There was a board of directors, and they were not at all pleased with the draining, as it were, of Toolco money to finance Howard Hughes. They must have thought a frolic of larks out on the West Coast. It certainly did not, I'm sure, appear to these people at Toolco as a legitimate use of money. Therefore, Howard Hughes did not want to be bothered with these people. He wanted to have someone there who was his man to make sure that things go the way he wanted. This is what Dietrich was hired to do. He was given a doubling of his current wage. I think he was paid $5,000 a year. And, Hughes told him he would pay him $10,000, and he also had a chance to exhibit his sense of humor. So we get a taste of that, and he's a pretty live wire fellow. So Dietrich kind of tags along, getting a sense of his new boss, and Howard Hughes turns his attention once more to this film he's making called Hell's Angels. Hell's Angels is a film which is a look focused on World War I, and the primary interest of Howard Hughes is in the airplane usage. He has apparently already filmed all the land-based shots. This is a silent film. But he is not satisfied with the way the aerial shots are going. And he has had quite a lot of film taken, and he just is not pleased with the sense of speed that is shown in the film. The film shots that he has are basically with a clear blue background. He finally arrives at the idea that what is needed is something which is sort of static in the air, which would act as a kind of a foil, as it were, for his airplanes, and it would be more or less stable, so that the speed of the planes might be more easily grasped by the moviegoer. He orders one of his men to have the best meteorologist at UCLA stop by. He was going to hire him, and he wanted this man to find him some clouds. This particular individual shows up, and he is a fellow who will add a certain comic dimension to this particular film as well. Most of the people that are hired are sort of like personal employees of Howard Hughes, but he does have a recurring money problem because of his own sense of film's look. Now, at the outset, I mentioned that this particular film by Scorsese looks good, looks very good. And it's well because this is the sort of thing that was important to Howard Hughes himself, how his films looked. And he was willing to spend a lot of money and a lot of time to achieve the right look. And his men, day after day, would sit there trying to wait out clouds. And as they have sung in popular contemporary songs about Southern California, it doesn't rain in Southern California, the blue skies and so forth. So the weather does not always cooperate. Hughes's character is putting pressure on the meteorologist to find me some clouds. And he is going kind of nuts trying to do so because California is not really necessarily cooperative. But eventually he does find some clouds up in Oakland, and off they go for the filming. We do see also Howard Hughes in the act of filming some of his dog fights in this particular film himself. He has something in the order of 24 cameras that he's utilizing. This is much more than is utilized by the studios at that time in their usual films. There is a cut to a social scene, as a matter of fact, in which we see Howard Hughes approach Louis B. Mayer, played by Stanley DeSantis, with the idea of buying or renting, borrowing, if possible, a couple of cameras. And it's pretty clear from their colloquy that they took a dim view of this outsider, this maverick, this rich boy from Texas, and they flashed a problem which was going to grow, which is the welling power of the studios in Hollywood in making a film. Increasingly, it would be difficult for an outsider to finance a film and to have it distributed and shown, because the studios took care to have downstream control as much as possible. At any rate, at this point in time, there was a window of opportunity, and Hughes was there. He has a pretty slick, bright agent named Johnny Meyer working for him, and after he has gotten a kind of patronizing response from Mayer, which does not sit well with Howard Hughes's character, he tells this Johnny Mayer, "Get me 2 cameras, rent them, buy them, steal them if you have to, but get me 2 cameras." He said, "You're supposed to know this area. You're supposed, this is your turf. You told me you understood the inner workings. Get me 2 cameras." So we see in Howard Hughes basically a fellow who is something of a sovereign himself. He is not one to take orders. He's one to give one. He is someone who rules, his will be done kind of fellow. And as we'll see in the social part, and is very common with sovereigns, he has a harem. But at any rate, at this point in time, we want to consider the film aspect. This film is divided more or less into 3 parts. We have at the outset the film making of Hell's Angels, as well as the Aviator part, kind of dovetailed together at this point. And the social section is a clear demarcation. But after the completion of Hell's Angels, there is a more distinct cleavage between Howard Hughes, the filmmaker, Howard Hughes, the aviator, and Howard Hughes, the playboy. So we will, I think, look at each of these sections separately. Well, that's it, folks. A wrap. We're out of time again. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I do appreciate your tuning in and hope to see you again at our next Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn.